better, right? So let me start off again here. I want to tell you guys good morning, good afternoon, good day, and good evening. Someone just let me know that my volume was not sufficient. It was not good and not there. So hopefully this fixed it up a little bit for you. We are back at it again today. We are here on another day, another day, another dollar. And my soul wanna holler. And we're dealing with a subject today that is near and dear to my heart. We are talking about none other than the Black family. And I can't emphasize enough just how important the Black family not only is to me, but how it is to us as a community, as Black people in general. And it can't be emphasized enough. I know that sometimes we talk about things that Black people are not a monolith, and that's very true. There's no such thing as all Black people think the exact same way. We look at things, we view the world the same way. That our outlook on things are the same, but that does not mean that we as Black people are not a class, that we're not treated as a class of people, that we are not looked upon and judged as a class of people, even though we might not like the label, we might not like how others might view us, how it might come across for other people, and we want to definitely make sure that we have our own identity in place, and we don't want to be beholden to the identities that somebody else might put upon us. It's important to realize that even though that might not be what we want, it is. So we're looking at not how we want it to be, but rather how it actually is at this point. So when you're looking at it, you're considering it, it's important to understand it from that perspective. It's not what you necessarily want, it's how it's actually carved out at this point. And maybe at some point, it could be that we can carve out a niche where it's not quite that way, and it's on something other than race and class as it is in this country. But as of right now, as of today, we are grouped, we are judged, we are categorized, we are put in that box by everyone else, regardless of whether or not you put yourself in that box, as Black people. And when looking at it from that perspective, the Black family is the cornerstone. It is the foundation upon which all of these systems of inequity are geared to fight against. And it is the Black family, because without the Black family, without a cohesive, strong Black family, we were able to get in there and to undermine not just the family or the parental figures within the family at that time, but specifically the next generation coming up, the children. The children, Black children, are impacted in a way that goes far and away, far and above what others might think of when we think of how it's going to be impacted for Black families or Black children rather in this situation. So one of the things I want to talk about, and I guess I'm going to just jump right into it and just talk about some of the things that we're concerned with, or that I'm concerned with. I'm not going to say we, as if it is something that's impacting everyone, or that's on everyone's mind, but it's something that's always been on my mind. And I guess I need to start off by thanking my parents. Right? So I grew up with both my mom and my dad, and I grew up in a very strong Black household. And my parents taught me a lot of the value systems that I still carry through and carry with me even to this day. So when I think about the Black family, it starts with myself and my parents and how they have raised me. So I have to admit or acknowledge right now that I have a bias, I have a prejudice against not having a Black family, and a bias for the Black family. So, and a lot of the thought processes that might have shaped it. Actually, there were quite a few books that I read coming up as well. My parents made sure that I was able to not only have access to, but to make sure that I engaged in literature that dealt with Black people, and that I had a very Black or Afrocentric mindset at the time, to make sure that I got that information ingrained in me going forward. And it's kind of funny because one of the books would be this one here. This is actually a book that came out a while ago that many people will probably look at. I keep it in my house. Ironically, I keep this book in my half bathroom, and I keep it there for a reason. It's a very good conversation starter. This is Shahrazad Ali's A Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. And I've had it borrowed on several occasions because a lot of times you ask the question, have you actually read the book? Everybody always, they go to what the book says, and it's only on one particular sentence or a paragraph. It's not even a whole paragraph, it's a sentence in the book. So if you have a book that's over 100 pages long, and they focus in on one sentence and disregard the rest of the content within the book, which is pretty interesting to me because that was a tactic that was used even back then against information that was geared towards helping or uplifting the Black community, the Black family, that cornerstone, that bedrock, as it were. And so it does ingrain in me, or it was ingrained in me to a superlative degree, a very high degree, that the Black family needed to be strong, it needed to be intact, and that you had to have a strong Black mother and a strong Black father within that family. And a lot of times, in going back to that book, and I think it that way intentionally on Black mother, Black father, as opposed to Black father, Black mother, because one of the things they do that's there, and when I say they, I mean specifically the government and even the police that's involved in it, is that they want to remove the man from the family equation. So they relegate the Black mother, the Black father, specifically the Black father in this case, down to someone who contributes genetic material. That the rest of his contribution to the Black child, the upbringing of the child, is consequential and not important, and that he is a villain for the most part in many of the movies and many of the things that we watch as far as on television. So even in the fictional portrayal of the Black male, the Black man within the family, his portrayal within the family specifically, or just in society, but also in the family, is one of someone who tears down or breaks down the family. The family works fine until a Black man is around. And once you get rid of him, the family goes back to working fine again. So once you get rid of the father, the husband, then the family, it works consistently well. The portrayal of the Black man on TV in fiction is that of someone who is rough and tumble, someone who is to be feared because he is violent, because he is a terror. He lacks any emotional control for anything. And this goes back all the way back to that showing of Birth of a Nation, where Black men were feared because they couldn't control themselves and they were savages and they were raping white women. So the portrayal of the Black man as an animal that needed to be tamed and removed has gone all the way back as far as our, even in fiction, as being violent, emotional, uncontrollable, needing to be tamed, the monkey, the beast, that they looked upon as someone who was going to steer directly into hurting or curtailing, rather, young little white ladies and making it so that they were to be in fear. And that in turn was moved over not just to white people, but it was also moved over as well to the Black family as well. I'm going to drop a link in case anyone as they wants to jump on in here and has any feelings about this as I'm going in and talking about it. The link is in the comments right now. So if you do want to jump on in, you feel free. I say I'll stop my monologue and bring you on up. But as of what we're looking at right now, the Black family is definitely something that is under attack. Today, it's been under attack. A decade ago, it was under attack in the last century. It has been under attack since the time that Columbus came here to the America. So since that time, that particular group of white people came here to the Americas, the Black family, the indigenous families, and the slave families have been under attack. here in America to emasculate the black man, to subjugate the black woman, to separate the two of them, and to make sure that they don't appreciate each other, that they don't appreciate the qualities that each other brings, and that there is real animosity between the black man and the black woman to make sure that the black family doesn't. And one of the tools that's been used has been commercialism or consumerism, not just commercialism, but consumerism within the black family. And I want to go into, I'm going to save that for a little bit later here. But I want to really get into talking about some of the studies or some of the things that have been done in regards to the black family here. And let me share my screen here with you. I want to outline some of the, or share some of the studies that have come out showing the actual issues that have been going on with the black family and or families in general. Not this one is not just the black family, but this is one that highlights and points out something that's been going on with families in general, and that is the removal of men, the villainization of men within families. So here's a study from NIH, and this is the National Institute of Health. One of the things, and I let me just, the study deals with the casual effects of father absence. And I went through and I read it, and there's a lot. When I say there's a lot, this took me several days and actually go through and just to look at, I want to say just 50% of the corollary documentation that they have, because when you go through this, one of the things that you'll find, they make certain assertions, certain suppositions, and as they're making these suppositions, they're basing it off of certain studies, and you can see there are going to be references to those studies that are here, and then they even have tables. This was once I started going through, I was like, okay, so the tables that outline each of them, because they have four primary areas that they discuss that they look at. One dealing with education, and these are the studies that they looked at dealing with the father's absence and the impact on education of children with the absence of fathers within the family. So this was one of the areas that they looked at, and all of these are the actual source material or the studies that they refer to and coming to the conclusions they did here on NIH. And has a very large sample sizes. The other one that they looked at was mental health. That was another area that they looked at as far as with the family, or the absence of the man within the family. And this is families in general, which are the cornerstones or the foundation. But and not dealing specifically with black families. I'll get into the black families here in a moment. But NIH, this one here dealt with the effects of mental health if you on children with the absence of fathers in the family. Then they go on to another area for the labor force here, and these are all the studies they reference in regards to the impact of lack of fathers in the household on children growing up. Right, so the next generation is suffering for it, and the last thing that they looked at was them able to have stability in forming their own family. Right, going forward, you grew up in a household that did not have a strong foundation with a father within the home, because we minimize and villainize the man to the extent that we have done within our media, that we take the exception and we make it the rule. And then we also take that and we make that caricature the one that everybody looks at when they see a black man or a man in general. And the conclusion that they came to was very interesting. And I guess one of the things I can do at this point, I'm just going to read as some of the more interesting aspects of the conclusion, because they were looking at corollary information and whatnot in regards to it. But one of the things that they started, and this was as I couldn't do my highlighting like I normally would, and I wish I could on this particular one, but it says the body of knowledge about the casual effects of father absence on child well-being has grown during the early 21st century as researchers have have increasingly adopted innovative, methodical approaches to isolate casual effects. So they're trying to pull out the casual effects of, as far as, well, some of the other variables. They're trying to remove those and trying to see if they can get down to isolating those from the casual effects. It says we reviewed 47 such articles and find that on the whole, articles that take one or more rigorous approaches, and there were at least, no, there were five. I'm sorry, one, two, there were four. I'd say four different types of studies that they were referencing when you go through this material, of or methodologies that could be used, and they used these different ones that took into account different factors. It came about, or provided these results here. It says the handling problems and omitting variable bias and reverse causality continue to document negative effects of father absence on child well-being. Though these effects are stronger during certain stages of life course and for certain outcomes, we find strong evidence that father absence negatively affects children's social, emotional development, particularly by increasing externalizing behavior. These effects may be more pronounced if father absence occurs during early childhood than during middle childhood, and they may be more pronounced for boys than for girls. There is weaker evidence of the effects of father absence on children's cognitive abilities, and I'm going to stop there. So, one of the things that we're looking at is that now you have a cycle that you remove the father from the household, or you remove the father from the equation in the household, and what you begin to have at that point is a situation where the boys suffer more. So they're going to be negatively impacted even more so than girls would be. And in that regard, that they would be negatively impacted even more than girls would be. Now you have a situation again where the next generation that comes up is going to further reinforce that model that's been modeled for them, and they're going to go ahead and then they're going to do it, and it's going to be even more negative for the next generation, and even more negative for the next generation. And the young boys are going to come out worse and worse and worse with each subsequent generation as we continue to employ the model of fatherless homes, or children growing up without fathers in the home. And that's fathers in general, but even with, we begin to see that the effects are going to be just as damaging when looking at it on Black community. One of the things that's always discussed, and I took a class a while back that dealt with ArcGIS, and it's a type of software that if you're doing models and you want to sit there and overlay certain information, you can grab it from the census. It was a really good class showing you how to correlate a lot of that data, put all that data in there, normalize the data so that you can take a look at and get the information that you're looking for. And in looking at that and knowing how that operates, I was able to correlate a lot of the stuff that was on a website that I now no longer need to go through ArcGIS and pull the information from the census site and do that, because they've done a great job on doing it themselves, and that is blackdemographics.com. So if you're looking at information or looking for information on Black families, and much of their information they're going to pull it from the census themselves, just like you can do it, just like they do it, but they've already done the work for you, and they've already put it into graphs for you to be able to visualize that data. That being said, one of the other places that on that website on on blackdemographics.com, one of the things that they talked about, or one of the things that they show, is Black marital status. So here you have a situation where you're looking at the Black marital status, and you have just Black people in general, Black men, and then Black women. And so overall, 30% of Black people are married. 50% have never been married. 12% are divorced. 3% separated. 46% women. Then you have 33% of black men. So now they break it down by uh, each group between black men and black women. 33% of black men are married, as opposed to 27 for black women. 52% of black men have never been married, as opposed to 48% for black women. 10% of black men are divorced, as opposed to 13% for black women. And the widows, as you're looking at 3% to 8%, and then 3% to 4% for separated. And then overall for the U.S., that's including everybody. There's 48% are married, 34% have never been married, and then 11% overall are divorced, and widow for 6%, 2% for separated. So when you're looking at those numbers there, you see, and it comes about, or it doesn't come about, but it helps to highlight, shows that black men are married less than what black women are married less than what black men are. And divorce rates are going to be higher for black women than what they are for black men by about 3% here. And that's interesting because it correlates to some other information on marriage and divorce in regards to, we talked about on a previous episode, and showed you the information that was there in regards to the black family. And again, why this is significant and why this is important. This is important and significant because the black family is the core of the black community. It's the core of the community in general. And if we have black families that are not strong, that are separated, that are divorced, that are never married, and the black men and black women don't want to be married, don't want to be married to one another, right? Don't want to deal with one another, have this negative outlook, negative viewpoint of one another, are constantly at odds with one another, then that becomes a problem. And the black community suffers. Not only does the black community suffer, but specifically the upcoming generation, they suffer. So there's a lot of narratives, false narratives, that have been put forth to the black community in general and in totality, that gets bought part and parcel pretty much exclusively within the black community. And it's one of those things that when you start to look at it, one of the other things that blackdemographics.com, it highlights, it has a statistic, and I might show that a little later on as well, on marriage by race. And out of all the groups, and they group it by black, they group it by Hispanic, they group it by white, they group it by Asian. Out of all the groups, the least married group at 30% are blacks. Hispanics are at 43%, 52% for whites, 58% for Asians. So Asians being the highest married, the least married being the black group. And ironically, both the black group and the white group are divorced at around the same percentage at 12%. So that's that Western Americanized thought process, that stuff that comes from the community here, that definitely gets pushed there. So it's one of those things that, as you begin to look at it, black people in general are married less than white people, and or less than any other group, and have more. And it appears that we have more animosity because even when you look at the old shows that they used to put on and that were targeted towards the black, even there, the goal was to provide a negative image of the black woman, the black man. That the family can consist or subsist without them a lot better than they can with them. And it wasn't until, and I know this is controversial for many people, with Bill Cosby and the Cosby Show, that the image of the black family began to change. And that was an important, or a milestone for many, as far as the portrayal of black people and the black family in general. The black father was significant within the household. He was someone who held a professional job and not just Pookie or Ray, as they like to call him today. He was someone who was actually there. And even in looking at when they start classifying classifying it as Pookie and Ray, a lot of that goes towards or could be correlated to the fact that these are individuals that have qualities that were never developed. So they have very beneficial qualities that were never developed the way they should. They show an entrepreneurial spirit, specifically their dealers, right? So it's like they see a problem, they want to resolve a problem. They know how they can make money because they've been taught a certain way on how to go about getting the bag, so to speak, right? So you have this situation where these are individuals that are out there that now know a certain way on how to go about making money. And they endeavor to engage in a way to provide and to get the things that they haven't been taught on how to go about doing. They're without a father or without a rudder within their family line. And so they grow up and they emulate the individuals that are put in front of them as role models, which are the other good boys on the block, right? Somebody who has a good trap and how they're going to sit there and they're going to work it. And they're taught how to go about doing it. And instead of in the past, where even those individuals would try to steer young black men on more positive paths, more positive trajectories in life, they were cycled out for individuals that were just all about money, that bought wholesale into capitalism as it was, the degradation of the black community, and continue to perpetuate the stereotypes and the tropes within the community until you had something where it was full on, all in, bought out, that was how it was going to happen. And that's something that it truly is. It is a sad state of affairs for the community, and one that actually just really, it tugs at my heart, where I think about how our community suffers because of it. One of the other things that we could talk about, or that I actually wanted to touch on or wanted to talk about here in dealing specifically with the black family, with the black community here, is another graphic that came up, and this one here, and see if I can share this one with you as well. This one here shows black women more likely to be married than white women until 1970, and then the trajectory changed. So you see the line down here, over here so I can point this out for you. This line here, this is black women, and you see that trajectory going up, and then white women, and you see that trajectory going down. And you see the percentage here. This percentage, and as I say, so this is the time frame here, and this percentage here, this is a percentage of never married among women aged 35 and older by race, 1890 to 2010. So normally you would think that growing up would be a good thing. Here, that's not a good thing. So, from 1890, number of black women that were never married covered just over 5% that you're looking at the graph. And then sometime around, like I said, 1970, but you see it started to take off literally 1980. It exponential growth. It started climbing at an exponential rate of black women never married, all the way up until 25% of black women have never been married in 2010. However, among white women, that number fluctuated just under this 10% marker here. So around 10% of white women have never been married, and then that number starts dropping. And in 1970, they kind of caught up with one another, and from then you see that white women, they dipped down to around that 5% mark of white women have never been married, and they still stayed between 5 and 10%. However, the black family that's been under attack, the black family that has been out here suffering because of the war on the black family, and the fact that in many ways we are participatory in this war on black families. We get it in our heads to buy the tropes, these fictional tropes I might add, on black families. And because a lot of it is based on fiction. We watch TV shows, we watch shows like Empire and Power and things like this, and Power Couple, and we forget what the black family was there for. That it was the cornerstone of the community. It's the linchpin, so to speak. The thing where it was that we're going to go through this thing called life together, and we're going to have children, and we're going to bring up in a way that's going to be beneficial for both them and for us as Black parents, right? So when looking at it, that was something that definitely happened quite a bit as far as who's suffering because of it. The Black family suffers, in turn, the Black kids suffer, in turn, the community suffers. And each stake that they keep on putting in here is another nail, so to speak, in the coffin of the Black community. And we continue to devolve, we continue to denigrate one another, we continue to flush the Black community down the toilet, so to speak. And it really is a sad state of affairs when you really look at it, because we traditionally have been stronger together. And that goes towards what the strategy has been in trying to break apart the Black family, or get the Black family to break apart, as it were. And as we break apart the Black family, and as Black men and Black women don't appreciate one another, as Black men and Black women don't talk to one another. And I guess this is as good a time as any to also not just state my bias and my prejudice towards Black families, I talked about earlier, that I was raised with both my mom and my dad, and I have great parents. But in regards to seeing the family today, I have a bias and a prejudice that I need to acknowledge, in that I deal with a broken family. So I am a mediator by trade. I deal with and I mediate uh, for broken relationships, whether it's a business relationship or a family relationship. I am SAPSR certified, and that is super effective parent-child relationship here in the state of Texas. So I can I'm certified to deal also with family cases. And in all situations, when you look at it, there is a lack of appreciation between men and women. And I deal with that up close and personal every single time that I go. Right? So when I deal with these things, what I'm seeing biases and prejudices in me, because I'm seeing if 52% of all marriages in the United States, as meaning that's saying some people say that could be at 45%, and depending on how they measure it, it fluctuates between 45% of all marriages ending in divorce, or 52% of marriage, or 56% of marriages ending in divorce in the United States, depending on where you look for that data and how they try to normalize that data. I deal with a half of marriages that are failures. And so I have to acknowledge that I'm dealing with failures, and that number fluctuates for who initiates the divorce. For women, being in all of the studies, it's going to be women. So it varies from anywhere from 66% to 85%. So anywhere from 7 out of 10 to 9 out of 10 marriages, when you file for divorce, are filed by women. So you have half of them are gonna fail, and out of the half, approximately 4 to 5 of that half, or so 5 out of 10 fail. Approximately 4 to 5 of those are going to be filed by women, depending on which study you're looking at. And I truly, this is speculative at this point. This is not correlative, but it is one of those things where you look at it and you see that once we were able to devalue the man in the relationship, and to say that you don't need a man, one of the things that has been highlighted in Shahrazad Ali's book, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, one of the things that she talks about extensively is the messaging that we get as youth. And we already went through and talked about the study from NIH earlier, showing the negative impact on both men, on young boys and young girls, it being more prevalent within young boys on those negative impacts. But young girls also getting a huge dose of how do you deal with young men and the outlook and the viewpoint of young men from their mothers. And it continues on that negative downward trajectory that we talked about, that was shown in that NIH study, continues on generation to generation till we get further and further negative viewpoints of young women looking at young men, not appreciating what young men are, and then young men not appreciating young women as well, and not appreciating their role, or the fact that they have something to do within the family. And a lot of times, young boys where young men do want to participate and have a role within the family and are extricated from the family, kicked out of the family, because why do you have to deal with them, right? Anytime there's a problem or an issue, it's all about what the young lady wants, and it's irregardless of the impact that it would have on the children. And I can honestly say that I am truly, truly appreciative of my parents because that as a regardless of when they fall out or when they don't or whatever, that was a husband and wife thing for them, but for us as children, they made sure that they were united and together for us. And I truly appreciate the fact that they're still married today, but I truly appreciated during that time frame when I was growing up that regardless of the issues that they might have experienced, they didn't quit on the relationship, quit on the marriage, and they made sure that we as kids, uh, that hey, we have a room today, another one of those today. But we as kids definitely received the benefit of having our family, my family together, and the importance of having my father around during that time frame. I, I can't put into words just how important that was for a young man, a young black man, growing up and having that male in the home and seeing that he did the absolute best that he could do in providing that role model for me growing up, and that was extremely important growing up from a young man's perspective. So I can definitely, when I look at the studies, I'm already biased towards it, and then it's like, okay, this kind of reinforces. I'm like, okay, well, let me look at the objective data, not the stuff that you go to a .com and find somebody who puts data out that goes along with what I feel. Let me look at the .gov or the .org that will go ahead and look at this information and looks at various types of well, I guess various types of data, looks at the pros and cons of all of it, and then comes to a conclusion, and that conclusion is the same thing. They were saying that the importance for families to have a united front within. One of the other things that was pointed out when looking at blackdemographics.com, and this, well, let me point this one out first, and I'll share the other one in a moment here on issues with the black family or trying to make sure that the black family is strong and why it is that black men and black women need to stay together or should stay together. And specifically, it's going to go with kids, but again, let's look at this one here. This is black men were more likely to be married than white men up until 1960. And then it deviates. And just like the one that we looked at, the chart that we looked at with the black women, you would think that the higher it goes, the better. In this case, that's not the case. The higher it goes, the worse. And you notice the red line, this is going to be black men, and the white line, or the blue line rather here, this is going to be white men. And then you'll notice it's going from 1890 all the way up to 2010. And it points out coming in here, you see that as a black man, this number here, this percentage never married among men aged 35 and older by race, than with black and white. So you're looking at it all the way up until 1960. So black men covered among them, black men never married was less than 10%, right? So all the way up until you got to around 1940, then it jumped up just over 10% here that you're looking at. And then from there, it dropped, it dropped right back down, right? It dropped down again to under that 10% marker. And after that, it started climbing, or it stayed kind of constant up until around 1980, and then it just skyrocketed almost like exponential growth. So it reached over 25% of black men have ever been married, which is a huge turn from where it used to be. And the same as and you look at the white men, they're dipped down very low, and they're still under that 15% threshold that they've been at, between 15 and 10% that they've been at this entire time. So we look at, for white men, it's been around the same. They're keeping their families around the same intact that it's always been. And the black community that was really strong by having a strong core, strong black nucleus where you're able to get things like uh, Rosewood or in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or those type of deal or those type of communities where you're able to congregate, coalesce, have strong families, strong communities, build strong infrastructures for the black community. They figured that it wasn't enough just to bomb it. Like the black family, that they realized that they didn't do enough to make sure that they kept the black family from actually coalescing within this country. And now that that's where they're at, they're making sure that the black family fails, and that you want to get to a point where the black family is not together, and that black men and black women don't get along, and that black men and black women see each other as adversaries, and that black men and black women don't see each other as fit and suitable marriage material. And it's for a variety of reasons. Some of them might be that as we continue to evolve and the next generation is worse than the previous generation, as we looked at the data from that NIH report earlier, that each subsequent generation is going to be a little worse for wear than the previous generation as far as coming together and appreciating the benefits that marriage has on the subsequent generation and on the community as a whole. We become more individualized, more selfish, more self-serving, more consumer-oriented, and less towards making sure that the black community as a whole is coalesced together and able to stand strong, and to be able to get out and make sure that the things that we need as a community, that our voice, our needs, the things that we need goes forward. And we're not able to do that at this point. And unfortunately, the way things are going, I don't think that we'll be able to do that anytime soon. And my question, I guess, that I have to everyone that's out there is, how do we do that going forward? How do we make sure that the black family stays strong? Or I shouldn't say stay strong, gets back to being strong as it was at one time. Because as it stands right now, not only are we not strong, we are subject towards all the different issues, all the different limbs that society as a whole imposes on us as a community. And if you have the black man out of there, you start talking, I say, there is another statistic I'm going to go into at another live, because I want to talk about consumerism, commercialism, and the capitalist society, because things fall down on the lines of both race and class within our society. And one of the things within that consumer class is that black women outspend just about anybody else. If you can get black men to a little more conservative and understanding that we need to keep things together within the family, and say, oh, you don't need the black man. As a matter of fact, we'll pay you, and we'll make sure that you are okay, black woman, without a black man. And not only that, we'll take the money that the black man should be making and we'll give that to you. Just make sure that you give it all back to us. And I don't think you understand exactly how that works. That is, we're going to give you, do the things that you want to do. Do you, boo, type deal. And as you do you, I want you to make sure you give all that money back. So you spend it on the latest red bottles or whatever the consumerism, the things that says that you need to have, and not appreciate exactly what it is that's beautiful about you. And I guess this is let me tell you a story. I'm reluctant to tell the story because it's happened with multiple young black women, and it sounds like I'm putting my sisters down, and I'm not. I recognize a lot of this might be, I'm not going to say it might be, a lot of this is on the upbringing and how it is that we came up, and the viewpoint that we have, and things that come up in the music and in the media, much the same way as a black man has been marginalized. The self-esteem of black women has been on assault by everybody, and in some cases, in some cases, by black women themselves. But black men, and some of these rappers will also do it at times as well. So here's the story. And this was difficult for me because I really do hate the fact that this is not an isolated event. Actually, this happened at least 5 times. yeah, I'm starting to, I'm on two hands at this point. I'm starting to think about maybe it might be more than that. So, one of the things that I've done in my life is I've done photography and videography, and I had a stint where one of the things I used to like to do, and I would do this with young black women a lot of times. And the first time it happened, it kind of took me by surprise, right? So you talk to a young black lady, you see she's attractive, and it's like, hey, I wouldn't mind taking your pictures as a because she sees your work or sees my work rather, and she looks at it. She goes, hey, I would like as a we should do something. I'm like, yeah, I don't. So I just don't have a whole lot of money to do that right now, and I'm looking at it like, okay. And I know a lot of y'all probably thinking I'm trying to be the perv, and I'm gonna be like, hey, we can work out another method of payment. Yeah, no, that's not what we're doing, right? We're not. Not working out another method of payment in the way that you guys are thinking. In my head, there is something else that I do want out of it, right? But it is not the other method of payment that you're thinking. This goes back to my heart thing, right? On with something that if I value the black community, this is something that goes back to my heart, going back at my heart thing. And so what I did with this young black woman, I said, you know what, I know that you don't have a whole lot of money. I said, this will work out good for both you and for I. I would like to get, yeah, I would like to get someone like you in my portfolio of work that I have, specifically black women. I said, but there is catch. I will do your photos for free and no cost to you, no charge to you on one condition, right? There's one condition. I will do this work for you. I say, but you got to do one thing for me, right? And I know a lot of y'all feel not perv now. What I wanted this young woman to do for me was I wanted her to take the pictures with her natural hair. That was it. Her natural hair. The way that God made it so it grew out of her hair. That was what I wanted. You could style it any type of way that you wanted to, but it had to be her hair. Not her lace front, nothing along those lines, just her hair. She didn't want to do it. She turned down over $300 worth of work just so she didn't have to, just so she wouldn't have to wear her hair. I'm gonna let you think about. I'm gonna let you think about that for. So here we are in this situation right now with this young black lady, and again, hers wasn't even the worst one. Again, like I said, I offered this out to young black women on multiple occasions just because I was like, this must be an outlier. She cannot be what stands I'll say along those lines for black women. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. Somebody saying music. Let me see, is there still music playing? Did that fix the music? I hope so. I didn't realize there was music still playing. I apologize if there's been music playing all this time. And thank you, No Signal, for letting me know. I didn't realize there was music playing all this time. I thought I said when I killed the audio, it killed okay. Learned something new today. I apologize for that. So in any event, this young black woman, she was concerned about her hair. And one of the young black ladies, when I talked to him about it, one of the things that she told me, she says, why would I even want that? I wouldn't even want to look at those pictures afterwards. She wouldn't want to look at pictures of herself. And this is a beautiful young black woman. I wish I don't as a the names and faces shall remain nameless, But this is one of those situations when you look at it, that's crazy, 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 crazy how greatly they've been devalued in their own eyes. So we devalued black men within our culture, and we devalued black women in our culture. And we hold each other in animosity and in animus. We don't deal with one another at all. Right. So we get a situation. I guess that is a LOL type moment. But we don't get a situation where black men and black women truly appreciate each other. And instead, what we do now, there's a lot of good work that is going on in the space, uh, where you're looking at the within the community on having real conversations with one another and being able to see some of the unrealistic expectations we are having with one another and seeing exactly what the expectation is versus what they I say what you should be expecting. But I think one of the other conversations that really needs to be had at this point is that not only do we need to have that conversation where we're in we talk about the expectations, but in why it is that why it's beneficial for us to be together as black people. What is it that we gain in unity together as black people? And I hear you, yes, outstanding. I appreciate that. I need my people to get my back. And if you appreciate it, I mean, I really need y'all to get my back because I'm saying things out there that I know that it doesn't go with the narratives that they want as far as for us as black people. Again, they've been since birth of a nation, the media portrayal of us has been one of animals that need to be contained. And me going against that narrative or talking about that narrative being wrong, and the fact that also the narrative of black men in general needing to be culled out of the family, pulled out of the family. No part of the family is something that goes against the narrative as well. And that black women and black men needing to be on the same page. And when we work together is when things actually work together. I say when things turn out best. And that does not mean, when I say work together, that does not mean that you need to be a boss girl or a boss and that tells the black, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about when we work together, when our families are good and they're cohesive, when we have children growing up in cohesive families, children that are there, that understand that they have the support of a mom and a dad, and that they have their father there to actually provide the thing that fathers provide within the family, then black families succeed. Black families are great, and black families are good in what it is that they do. So it's again one of these situations where when we start to look at it, we see the benefits of what's going on with the black family. And let's talk about one of the correlations that happened. And let me share my screen again with you here. This deals with the war on drugs and the effects that it has on black marriage. So we've noticed that in the 1970s, 1960s, that there was an uptick on unmarried black men and women, right? And here, what you're starting to see, this was another one that it had. When you looked at it, you would think, oh, the higher the better, and higher the better definitely is not good here. This is another one again from blackdemo.com, and they're using the Bureau of Justice Statistics on prisoners, and you can find this BOP information as well on the BOP website. BOP is the Bureau of Prisons. We went over that in a previous episode on the incarceration and things that people are incarcerated for. The majority of all of those incarcerated in prison, and I use the federal because each state, and I'm not going through 52, or I'm sorry, 50 different states or 50 different statistics, but I just use the federal statistics in that particular episode when we were talking about the incarceration for it, and the incarceration for most of these things are going to be on drugs. And so now we have the war on drugs and its effects on black marriages in the 80s and 90s. And so here you have the percentage of black men over 35 never married that we talked about before that hovered around that 10% mark. And we can see they're using that data here again. Once again, we're seeing it where you get that line, that same line that we had before, right? However, this is a line of blacks in prison, right? And it starts to look that, you can see the correlation here that LBJ declares a war on poverty right here between as a during that civil rights movement. Then you have Nixon declaring a war on drugs. You have Reagan doubling down on that, him, Bush, and Clinton with his three strikes rule. And you'll start to notice that at the same time that black men were going to prison at an alarmingly high rate, black marriages started to dip, or black men never married started to dip at the same time. And that line is very similar. It's not exact, but it is very similar. And it's interesting that that number on top and the number of black men never married continue to rise. And it says this is even in spite of, when you see this one starting to come down, a decrease in the incarceration levels, this black line starting to come back down and level out for black men, that never married continues to climb, continues to soar. And that's even under our esteemed black president, Barack Hussein Obama, who sold us hope and change. And we still are hoping with very little change on how that system worked out for us. So I think that that was something that we got hoodwinked into. We were sold a bill of goods that definitely did not work for us. And yeah, that is a very sad state of affairs for us. So that being said, I want to sit down. If there's anybody who does want to come up again, I'm going to leave the back room open. If anybody wants to come up and wants to share their thoughts, by all means do so. If not, one of the other things I definitely want to talk about here, or I wanted to allude to, is the need. And I don't, if it hasn't been clear, or I haven't made it clear as we've been going through this, the need for the black community and for the black family to come together. Okay. There is a definitive, undeniable need for the black community to come together. And I don't know what the answer is on how to make that change happen. I believe part of it deals with education, making sure that individuals know what the numbers are, know what the plan is, know what the strategy is for the black community. And that strategy is to keep us at odds with one another, keep us involved, keep the family divided, keep the community divided, keep men and women, black men and black women at odds with one another, not able to see eye to eye. And if you're able to do that, then you're going to be able to keep the black community at odds with one another. You're going to be able to keep it weak. You're going to be able to keep it emaciated. You're going to be able to keep the black man emasculated. And that whole family dynamic that we're looking at, that's something that's definitely going to go away. And we're not going to be able to have a strong black family. The hope was real. I guarantee. So I grew up in a time, you touched on something. I guess it's a sensitive topic for me, because I grew up at a time when I never thought that there would ever be a black president. Period. Point blank in the story. Didn't think it would happen in my lifetime. I remember my parents always saying that it would never happen in their lifetime. And we've had a host of individuals in clown suits that tried to take up the mantle and become the first black president of the United States. And that was one of those situations when you were looking at it, it was something I thought, okay, this will never happen. This is not something that's going to happen. This is not something that we're going to deal with. I won't see it, but like a good ancestor, hopefully the next generation, or the subsequent generations somewhere along the line, will be able to see that level of change. And when that individual, our number 44, comes in, and he campaigns on the hope and change, everybody, including when he was elected, there was a level of pride. I don't know how else to describe, besides there was an extremely high level of pride on my part on the fact that you had a president who was a black president that was there, that was going to represent black people. The thought that he would be able to make the changes that was necessary, while saying things that would be as a understanding that initially he was going to have to say things that were going to be uncomfortable for white people, or very comfortable, not uncomfortable, very comfortable for white people in order for him to get in there. And then once he got in there, because I'll be honest with you, I seen the fact that he was with Reverend Jeremiah Wright, and that brother there, he doesn't mind saying things that make white folks uncomfortable. In their head, when they hear Jeremiah Wright, the things that he says will make white folks uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that. I am all on board that if it makes them uncomfortable, but it's the truth, it's the truth. Sorry, the truth hurts sometimes. You just got to deal with it, roll with it, and maybe it'll make you better white people. I don't know if it will, but that's what I was hoping for. So I figured, okay, he was gonna have to sit there and put some distance between them. And then once he actually got in the office, and the changes that I was expecting for black people. Okay, so term one, it didn't happen. And okay, great. Term one, it doesn't happen. Term two, he's lame duck. What's he gonna lose at this point, right? It's not like they're gonna impeach him and pull him on out. What does he have to lose to make sure that he provides us the things that he campaigned on, that stuff that we hope for, the change that he campaigned on, that we were going to get significant change and not just much of the same. And it turned out you got both. You still got a lot of hope. That hope is definitely real. The change part, maybe some spare change is what we got. Holding your hand out, you got a little spare change. And I think everybody else got some spare change, and we got no change at all as far as the black community. And that's not just the crap on him and the talk down on him or whatever, but I say he's a politician. And I should have known better than to put any kind of hope or real thought process or belief that a politician would actually do things besides what politicians do, which is to feed you things, to make you believe certain things in order to get the job. And then once they get the job, they'll continue and they'll be the status quo, kind of like what we're dealing with right now. That being said, I guess I shouldn't. I'm gonna hold my tongue. In any event, let me self-censor. Let me auto-censor. In any event, when I'm looking at it this way with the black family, I would love to see the black family come back together. And I don't have a definitive answer for it. I think that one of the things that needs to happen is we need to get away from the culture that we have, which is a culture of selfishness, culture of consumerism, right? Where we value things over people. At one point in time, there was a line, I'm trying to remember where I heard this line from. At one point in time, we used to love people and use things. And somewhere along the line, we went 180 on that. And we began to love things and to use people. And at this point in time, it looks like that's something that we continue to do, specifically for black women. And I'm going to talk about this in depth on consumerism, on the value that black women have within the consumer society, and why it is that you would like to keep the black man out of there, because the black women are propping up a lot of the dollars that are spent on frivolous things that really don't mean anything and don't hold any true value. Well, they're valuable, I guess. And that one, I'll also talk about the difference between something being valuable or having value and being valuable to you. So we'll talk about the difference between the two, why it is why that's important, what it is that we could value or possibly should value a little more than what we currently do value, and how it is that we can continue to deal with one another in a civil way, a way that is beautiful towards one another. Wow, that's okay. Let me just read that. As I kind of looked at it, I was like, it says your dad was called a nigger at a corner store and by himself went on a strike. One man, one sign, walking up and down the street, closed the corner store down, and it's now apartments. I will never forget. I appreciate that. It's kind of like where I'm at. He gives me hope. He gives me hope. I don't do Starbucks. I know a lot of people love Starbucks. But after that Philadelphia incident and the fact that I call it lazy reporting, for 2 months after the incident where the brothers got arrested at that Philadelphia store, and they boycotted they started picketing that particular Starbucks, and Starbucks shut their stores down. The one thing that Starbucks did not do, and I would have to see Starbucks say it themselves. And I'll be honest with you, at this point, it's probably a moot point because they probably got rid of that individual. I don't care at this point. Uh, Starbucks never said they got rid of that person. They didn't fire that person. And I went and I looked at every single article they had for the next 2 months after that incident happened. And every article that said Starbucks fired the manager who started that whole incident, the racist that started the whole incident, that Starbucks fired him. When you go down and you read the actual article and they give you the quote from Starbucks quote was the same every single article. And I looked at all the articles because every single morning I would get up. And at the time I was in law school. And so every single morning I would get up and I would go to Starbucks. And on my way to law school, I would stop at Starbucks and I would buy myself a grande flat white with coconut milk instead of regular milk. $5.48 every morning. That was including the tax. Over the course of a year, it amounted to over $2,000 because I didn't just buy one every single day. Well, most days, at the minimum, it was going to be one. And granted, over $2,000 is not even a drop in the bucket for Starbucks. It doesn't amount to just about a hill of beans for Starbucks. However, I will not personally go back and patronize a Starbucks. It's not that I'm at odds or that I'm against them having sensitivity training, because what Starbucks stated in that article, or every time Starbucks stated it, they stated that individual is no longer at that location. So the quote from Starbucks was that individual is no longer at that location. It was never that individual is no longer with the company. Now, I've worked in corporate America for over 10 years, and the standard line that you use whenever someone the clear-cut line that attorneys get together, they've crafted the language, and the language when you fire somebody so that you don't run afoul of anything, of any kind of EEOC or any kind of laws along those lines, any kind of employment laws, is that individual is no longer with the company. It's quick, it's easy, and everybody understands what that means. If you transfer that individual out, because there were some problems there, that individual is no longer at that location. It's just a transfer statement. So the news and all the media outlets reported that Starbucks had fired the individual. However, Starbucks only stated that that individual was no longer at that location. So where they get the notion, maybe they have some inside information, but what they quoted from Starbucks, what Starbucks said, that individual is no longer at that location. That is not firing the racist. That is, okay, we have a racist and we think that this is going to be a good learning opportunity. And we're going to shut all our stores down for one day. And in turn, that's going to be good. That wasn't good enough for me. You're a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation. I don't fault you for hiring racists. I have no issues if Starbucks hires a racist. You don't do direct hiring at every single one of your stores. There's going to be some that's going to slip through the cracks. It's going to happen, right? Being real, looking at it from that standpoint, that you're going to get a racist individual in a Starbucks. That's one of those things that's just going to happen, right? Whatever, if you are a multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporation, I will cut you some slack on that. It's what do you do once you realize that you have one? Do you keep them on, treat it as a learning opportunity, give them sensitivity training, and keep them on board to continue doing racist things in a more educated manner so as not to get Starbucks in trouble or you fired as you deal with Black customers, Black male customers, in a more racist way? Bothers me. So your father's example gives me hope, it enlightens and it makes me feel better. I hope that is something that definitely goes towards making a difference. And when it comes to the Black community, the Black family, and looking at the Black family, I'm hoping that little change going forward can make a bigger change in the community as a whole, because I would love to see the Black community come together. And that's not to say that mixed race families because the reality is if you are a black man or a black woman in a relationship with someone from another race, say a white guy or a white girl or a Hispanic person or an Asian person, your kids, for all intents and purpose, while they might want to identify as multiracial, if they can't pass, will be considered black. And I don't want to stigmatize them or put them in a position where they don't consider themselves black or a part of the black community, to continue on down that line, to enhance, to help to grow, to help the black community come together, and to show the black community that as we stick together, as we are together, that we're stronger together than we are apart, and that we need to appreciate one another. So I'm definitely in that vein, along those lines. Is that what he did? I apologize. Let me for everybody who's listening instead. It says for his dad, it says on his sign, my daddy wrote, "The owner called me a nigga." Giving me some ideas. Giving me some ideas. I say, and that's again, that's inspirational, because one person making that kind of a impact, and I guess because one of the things I'm going to discuss when we start talking, there's a show coming up that's it's not haven't dropped it yet, as far as the banner and everything for it, but we're going to be talking about technology, and how to sometimes we're going to need to learn, or one of the things that we can definitely do is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there's a reason for that. And I'll explain it once we start talking about that show on technology, on getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. But I the example that your father said, man, I said he sounded like somebody I might want to talk to. As if he's still around, I would love to see as they talk to him and hear specifically about this example or this situation that you're talking about right now. I think that this would be very insightful, and how he makes it how he made that change, because there's another show that I'm working on as far as a live for this month, uh, and he might be able to give me some insight. So I might want to reach out to you and see if he'd be willing to talk to me about it, as far as some insight on how to affect change in a society or in a community where the change is not easy to affect in that regard. But again, I say the core or the message for today's show is the black family is on assault, has been assaulted. Black family has been assaulted from the time that uh, everything has started here in this country. We've been bought over, or whether you believe that black people are here, the natives. Irregardless, the black family has been under assault. The image of the black family has been under assault this entire time, in fiction as well as in nonfiction. So in the news, you can see the assault on the black family, but even in fiction, on how they portray us as at odds with one another. And that is better off, or the black family is better off without the black man within the family. And one of the other things that we talked about, and I need to come back in here and read this again. If we had the music playing over it in the beginning, let me just read this before we cut on out of here. Uh, this is a study, and you can see it up here. This is the NIH, the National Institute of Health, a .gov website. They did a study on, and let me scroll all the way up so you can see this here. I'm going to pull this so that you can see it. Let me share my screen with you here. The casual effects of father absence. And this is, in general, this isn't like we specified as we went through talking about the black family and black father absence, and or the what not has a this was dealing with what the outcome could be on black father absence, but this is just the casual effects of father absence. And again, this is by the National Institute of Health. That you can see up here. This is the website, .gov website. So they dealt with, and they went through 4 primary effect models that they were looking at for looking at this. And of the 4 models, what they looked at was the effects on education without a father, effects on mental health without a father in the home, the effects on the workforce without a father in the home, and I've missed one. I know I did. health, education, uh, workforce, and oh, family stability and formation was the last one. And here's what came out of that. Here's the conclusion. At the end of that study on what it was that they found. They found the body of knowledge about the causal effects of father absence on child well-being has grown during the early 21st century as researchers have increasingly adopted innovative methodological approaches to isolate causal effects. We reviewed 47 such articles and find that, on the whole, articles that take one of the more rigorous approaches to handling the problems of omitted variable bias and reverse causality continue to document negative effects of father absence on child well being, though these effects are stronger during certain stages of life course and for certain outcomes. We find strong evidence that father absence negatively affects children's social emotional development, particularly by increasing externalizing behavior. These effects may be more pronounced if father absence occurs during early childhood than during middle childhood, and they may be more pronounced for boys than for girls. There is weaker evidence of an effect of father absence on children's cognitive abilities. And those were the two paragraphs out. But again, the website for the National Institute of Health, that's a .gov website. They did studies, or they reviewed quite a few studies. They brought all that information in, they looked at it, and that was the conclusion that they came up with. There's several more paragraphs to it, but those were the first two paragraphs. I just reading what they have what they came up with as far as a conclusion for father absence and the impact of father absence on the family. And this is not just the black family, this is on families in general. And now we're looking at it over time. We have these same impacts being done on young black boys without their fathers in the home, continuing on to the next stage again to the next generation. And in turn, they're going to come up with the exact same thing. And that was something that Shahrazad Ali definitely touched on in her book, The Black Man's Guide to Understanding a Black Woman. And I know that everybody likes to focus on the one sentence in that book. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it again. Again, the musical's playing, so let me make sure that I mention this again. That one sentence that everybody focuses on, they disregard everything else that she had to talk about, and they focus on the one sentence. And that one sentence only talks about, I'd say that one sentence states that sometimes a black woman needs an open-handed slap in the mouth. They disregard any of the information that came before it, and the information that came after it, and they say that one sentence is enough to invalidate everything else that she talked about within the book. And while I might not agree with slapping a person in the mouth, I'd say the circumstances under which she stated it, I might be able to understand it. That being said, if you read it out of context, or you take it out of context, and there is no context to anything, then it's kind of like some of the situations that we have going on today, where they state certain individuals being done in a certain way without context towards what was stated or how that was stated. So that's about all I got today. I say, and again, if there's anything that you take away from this, we as black people need to stick together. The black family needs to remain strong, or needs to become stronger, like it was back in the earlier times when we were more married as both black men and black women, as opposed to the never married towards one another. One of the other things I guess I did not show, and I should show here before we cut out as well, is this. Let's see. There is this the one? No, that is not what I'm looking for. So this is one that talks about black men and black women being married, and we can see that there definitely is a desire at 85 and 93% for having a black spouse, among as opposed to any other type of spouse. Although one of the things that I did note was that there are 479,617 more married black men than black women. However, in most cases, again, it's going to be over 85 or 85% or more having a black spouse. So we want to be together. just that we're having a hard time on figuring out how to be together, how to respect one another, how to keep one another in as a the way that we want to. And if I'm being honest at this point, because I am biased and prejudiced, because I deal with mediations and dealing with family media as a family mediation as well, those numbers are accurate, or from what I can see in my personal practice, those numbers as far as more women as opposed to men dissolving the families. And whatever the justification being, we need to figure out a way or a reason. I'm not going to say a reason. We need to figure out a way on how to keep Black families together and how to keep women from dissolving Black families and buying into the trope that you don't need a Black man. And I know that a lot of that is ingrained. A lot of that stuff, or a lot of those sentiments, are sentiments that have been taught over time, and sentiments that have taken root within the family and within the psychology and the psyche of women, that you don't need a man, that you don't need a Black man, and that Black men are optional. And we need to get out of the optional stage. We need to get out of the optional stage for Black men as well. If you're looking at it and you go and your only criteria is, man, but she bad, dog. Did you see her? She bad. Because that is your only thought process that gets your heart pumping, is the fact that she bad, and you didn't think about any other aspects to her, and the fact that you're going to have children with this individual. Then you're making the same mistake that a lot of women make when they look at men and they view them in a hypergamous sense of just what it is they bring with their wallets. So we need to get out of that that commercial mindset of looking at men as only for their wallets, and men looking at women only because they look good, and figuring out what else it is that we bring, because good looks last for a hot minute. That emotional feeling lasts for a hot minute. Good sex lasts for a hot minute. And then after that, the rest of it is, what else is there to that relationship? What else is there? And if we can't answer that question, then maybe you shouldn't enter into that relationship with that individual, especially entering into a relationship with that individual and bring a child into this world. Because when you bring a child into this world, you're just perpetuating a cycle, the cycle of creating a new consumer, the cycle of creating a new person that they can house within a prison industrial complex, the cycle of bringing someone else who's going to be new stud material to make sure that they can bring in more workers, more people to be commercialized, more people that will contribute to the system the way that they want it to, which is not as participants to earn money or to make jobs or to do like we did in Greenwood, or to do like they did in Rosewood, or in Tulsa or whatnot. What they want from us, and that is, and when I say they, I'm not trying to give some ethereal they. I'm talking about what the government and what big business wants from us. They want more consumers. They want people that are going to continue to perpetuate the system they have, which is a caste system that is based on both class and race. And they want to make sure that we as Black people are at the bottom for both the class and the race. And so long as we continue to buy in, so long as we continue to participate the way that they want us to, we're going to continue to be at the bottom of that barrel, and we're going to continue to get the same outcomes that we've always gotten in this country. So if you got anything out of this, and I would like to continue this conversation another time on talking about or dealing with us as a community coming together, overcoming the assault on the Black community, making sure that the Black family is strong, getting us back to where we were back in the 50s and 60s. Not saying that we need to go back to everything that happened there, but understanding that our children do better when we're together. And if our children do better, then that means we're going to be good ancestors. And we might not see it in our generation or in our lifetime, but our children will definitely see it in theirs. And when they do, watch out. Black family, they're going to be here. And we're going to we're doing great things. That's going to be it for me today. And if I didn't tell you before, I love you, care about you, hoping that you're having a great day. And just in case I didn't say it earlier and you didn't hear it over the music, I hope that you always, always, always have peace in your life. And with that, we are out.